Hey guys, the car scene here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to go over a super interesting topic that I've heard a lot about in the comments on my previous videos. Today we're going to talk about naturally aspirated versus turbos. Coming up here on the car scene. So the main example we're going to be using in this video is actually going to be the Chevrolet set of engines. They previously used a 5.3 liter V8 as kind of their middle of the road, not highest power, but medium power engine. And they're actually switching that over to a 2.7 liter inline four. They've had this engine out for a few years. It's been in some of their Cadillacs, some of their other mid-size vehicles, but now it's going into their full-size truck. And we're going to talk about the reasons that they chose to use this engine over the other one, and the big argument for and against turbocharged engines. So with that said, here we go. One of the first things we're going to talk about is actually going to be power curve and torque curve. This is one of the biggest reasons to switch over to a turbocharged engine, and it's exactly why Ford did it in 2009 and exactly why Chevy is doing it now. So first thing I'm going to do, I actually have some screen recordings that I'm going to put up. It actually shows the torque curve of the 2.7 liter, and you can see that it makes its max torque right off the bat, right at the bottom of the curve. Right at around 1,000 to 2,000 RPM. I mean, you have immediate torque, and that torque carries all the way up to 4,500. Meanwhile, if you look over at the 5.3 liter V8, you'll see that its torque curve number is a lot lower. You'll see that it doesn't reach peak torque until 4,400 RPM, and it doesn't really stay there very long. So one of the big reasons to use a turbocharged engine is because of that initial power. Now, a lot of you are going to say, what about fuel economy when I'm towing? I don't have that same boost that I have with a V8. With a V8, I can stomp on the gas and get more power. And meanwhile, you're right, it feels a lot better. You actually have more efficiency out of a turbocharged engine. Now, efficiency doesn't always mean miles per gallon. You are going to see significantly lower miles per gallon while under load with a turbocharged engine than what you would see with a naturally aspirated larger V8. That's just where the old saying comes from: there's no replacement for displacement. However, when you're unloaded and when you're using the truck in other situations, you're going to see a lot more efficiency, a lot more reliability, and a lot more feedback out of a turbocharged engine. Now, a lot of you are probably going to say in the comments, well, what about turbo lag? You didn't talk about turbo lag at all. I'm talking about it right now. So there is a little bit of gap. When you hit the throttle, it takes time for that turbo to spool up and give you that immediate burst of power that you experience when driving a turbocharged engine. Although you have that same type of feedback and that same type of delay from a naturally aspirated engine when it takes time to get up into that rev range. So let's say we're driving down the road, got my turbocharged Silverado, and I've got a big load behind me, maybe 6,000 pounds, and I'm like, hey, let's get going a little faster. I can hit the gas. Yes, I have to wait for that turbo to jump in, but once I jump in, I get my peak torque. I'm at 348, 380, whatever it is, pound-feet of torque to pull this trailer down the road. When I do that same thing in a V8, I don't have 380 pound-feet of torque. As soon as the gas kicks in, I've got like 200, and it takes until my engine revs up to that peak torque number to actually get that peak torque number. And that's why turbocharged engines are actually more efficient while towing and hauling than their naturally aspirated brethren. And next, we're going to slide into the points against a turbo and for a naturally aspirated. Okay, guys, I got some more Diet Pepsi in me. We're good to go. So one of the big reasons that people don't like turbocharged engines is because of reliability. A lot of people are like, hey, you need to change out that turbocharger at 100,000 if it makes it that long. In a lot of climates, especially where you're going to see a lot of dirt and debris, and especially where you don't see a lot of engine maintenance, there is going to be turbo failure. It happens in just about every turbocharged engine. Even on these big, huge diesel turbos, semi-trucks, you're going to see them changing out turbos every 100 to 200,000 miles. It's just part of the cycle. Here's what I will say. Since we talked about turbocharged engines being extremely efficient, in the lifetime of a 100,000-mile turbocharger, let's just say that it lasts that long, you're going to save a lot more fuel from that turbocharged four-cylinder than you would from that V8. And that savings can go directly into that turbo fund. So maybe at the end of the day, it's an even run, but at the same time, you got to realize more power, more fuel economy. Yeah, you have to change out the turbo, but quite honestly, it's not that big of a deal. At most, it's a $2,000 job if you get it done at a shop. Now, with that said, it's not an easy job to do by yourself, so it's definitely one of those jobs that you're going to want to go to a shop for, but you can honestly get it done for about $800 to $1,000. Some shops are really going to gouge you and hit you with like that $2,000, sometimes maybe even $3,000 price point, but you can always shop around with your jobs, get those bids before you get them done. Switching over to the naturally aspirated strengths, we've got a lot of strengths for the naturally aspirated. Immediate power, you don't have any turbo gap. But like I talked about, you're not going to have peak power right off the jump like you'd have with some turbocharged engines. Once again, this is all about high compression, low torque, turbocharged engines. We're not talking about like your Ricer, Subaru high horsepower turbo engines yet. That'll be a different video. We're talking about our low torque, high compression turbocharged engines. But like I was talking about with the naturally aspirated, you get a lot more feel, a lot more reliability from an aspect. Anytime you put any type of induction, whether it's turbocharger or supercharger, on an engine, you're going to experience more stress because you have more air, you have more stuff going into the engine cells. And when you have that in the cylinders, it's just putting more stress on the block, on the internal valve components, on the crankshafts. Just every single component is going to have more stress under it with a turbocharger. So just by nature, the naturally aspirated motor has a ton more reliability. I mean, you're seeing naturally aspirated V8s that have just basic oil change maintenance done on them, lasting 300, 400,000 miles, and sometimes even longer. Very few turbocharged engines can make it that long without changing out the turbos, without replacing head gaskets, without doing new cams, without injectors. There's a lot of things that require a turbocharged engine to make it that long, and many of them don't. But I will say most of the vehicles that are making it to 500,000 or even 1,000,000 miles in some cases are naturally aspirated V8s and V6s. So there's no point that I really have against it, especially not on the reliability front. The only thing I'm going to say is efficiency. When you put efficiency, the numbers side by side, you can tell a turbocharged, smaller displacement motor is always more efficient, without a doubt, except for under extreme load and for longevity. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, I use it under heavy load and I need it to last a long time. I don't want to buy a new truck every 6 or 7, 8 years. I want to buy a new truck every 2 decades. Well, for you, you're going to want to buy a naturally aspirated. That's where vehicles like the Frontier, like the older Tundra, like the Coyote V8 F-150, like the 6.2 V8 or 5.3 V8 that is out in Chevy. I mean, those are the engines that you guys are going to be shopping around for. There's also the 5.6 liter in the Titan, which is a really solid motor. It's called the Endurance V8. There's some on the road right now lasting 400,000+ miles. So they're super, super reliable engines. And you should definitely look into getting one of those if you're that type of person looking for that specific type of thing. The other note I'm going to note when we're talking about naturally aspirated V8s is going to be that a lot of them have to, because of the EPA, meet regulatory needs, and they're having to use new technologies to do this. And some of these new technologies are risking that reliability. One of them that I'm going to talk about is multi-fuel or multi-cylinder deactivation systems. A lot of these will actually turn your V8 into a V6 or a 4-cylinder to push less fuel when you're on the highway and when you're cruising. What we're seeing, however, though, is that with that uneven engine flow, you're actually seeing reliability issues. You're seeing head gasket failure. You're seeing injector failure. You're seeing fuel management problems. And you're even just seeing stalling out from running on that few of cylinders. So it's really, really important to note that while these new V8s are technically more reliable because they don't have that induction stress, they are having different stresses from different systems. And one of the things I'm going to say is that turbos have been out since 1980, readily available in cars. They've been out since 1960s when they got invented, but they've been in cars for 40 years now, just all over. They're pretty reliable. However, these multi-cylinder deactivation systems were just recently invented. We're talking 2010 was when they really got popular, and now they're starting to get into just about every V8 on the road. Those are the systems that aren't as proven as a turbo. So when it comes down to Turbo 4 or a new V8 with a cylinder deactivation system, and yes, you can get them written off. You can get them recoded so that they don't do the cylinder deactivation. However, the manufacturer is not going to warranty your vehicle if you do that, as well as most shops aren't going to help you because they don't know how to deal with that type of situation. It's not a super common situation. However, when it happens, it's a big ordeal. So what I'm going to say is if it were between an old or a turbo system that's been out for a super long time, 4-cylinder, or a V8 with this multi-cylinder deactivation, I would not want that system. I would go for the turbo every single time. And I think you guys should too, just because of the amount of years that it's been out. As well as, like I said, higher fuel economy with a turbo. Now, if you guys want the sound is a big deal for a lot of people. I know it is for me as well. A V8 has a sound that's unmatched by any turbocharged engine. The other thing I'm going to say is that turbocharged engines have a sound that's unmatched by any V8. I mean, you can really get some beautiful pops and crackles out of a turbocharged 4-cylinder that you just can't get out of a V8 naturally aspirated engine. However, if you want that deep rumble like you hear coming out of a Dodge Challenger or a Chevy Camaro with a V8, that's going to be where your naturally aspirated V8 is going to win, hands down, every single day. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you sticking around for the video this long. I'm glad we were able to get this out of the way. Some of you might still disagree with me after this video and say turbos are junk and I don't want them, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But I want to come out here and explain to you guys exactly why I thought what I want, so you guys can quit giving me hate speech down in the comments. As well as I wanted to go over the strengths of a V8 and explain exactly why I don't prefer a large displacement V-shaped engine design. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're liking the videos, make sure to like, comment down below, let us know what you think on the topic, as well as subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try and get you guys some more car talk videos like this set up in the future. Thanks for watching, guys.